UFC Fight Night, Jairzinho Rozenstruik versus Jailton Almeida. Welcome to another UFC prediction and analysis video presented by yours truly here at Boxingmmapicks. He goes by Zan, I go by Harris as usual. Fight by fight predictions and breakdowns from that betting perspective specifically. We want to let you know which fights are worth the value, which fights to avoid, which underdog has the best shot at winning, and some parlay action toward the end of the video as well. Make sure you hit the thumbs up on this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel here at Boxingmmapicks. And most importantly, we want to hear from you in the comments. For this UFC Fight Night, we have 12 fights overall. 5 of them are going to be on that main card, 7 of them on the prelims. Let's get started with fight number 1 of our prelims. We're looking at Jessica Rose Clark versus Tainara Lisboa. For Jessica Rose Clark, she is on a 2-fight losing streak. She lost to Julija Stoliarenko back in July. Solid overall fighter on paper, has reliable stand-up. Her striking's pretty solid. She cuts the ring off well. Her accuracy is there. Her striking technique is there. She has the wrestling on paper. We look at the numbers, 1.76 takedowns per fight. And it's something that she's resort to a little bit more often in her fights lately, especially with that sort of body lock trip combination. And although she has the takedowns offensively, takedown defense is not quite there. Submission defense is not quite there either. That's been costing her, especially lately. Her last 2 fights, losses via armbar. So although she is solid on paper, there are things that frustrate you a lot with Jessica Rose Clark, and that's why her record is what we see it at 11-8. And she's taking on the UFC newcomer in Tainara Lisboa. She's on a 3-fight winning streak. It's been just over a year since she last competed. We see her 5 wins there, all 5 of them via finish, 3 of them via KO, TKO, 2 of them via submission. She has a Muay Thai background. Her striking's pretty clean from what I'm seeing. Saw her even in a 2016 fight. She was piecing up Norma Dumont in that fight before Norma Dumont landed the rear naked choke on her. So this is someone who can strike. Her combinations look good. Expect some forward pressure from her. Her Thai clinch is pretty effective with knees, with elbows in the clinch. Her clinch game against the cage isn't too bad as a result either. And I have seen her work some way 2 takedowns. I've seen her, show me positional ground control is there as part of her game. Is she a wrestler? I don't quite think so, but it looks like she has a little bit of ability in that area. Good looking newcomer here for Lisboa. Though I wasn't able to really pull up all of her fights, I feel like I saw enough to make me side with the newcomer. Or she was an underdog, I should say, but she's not an underdog anymore. But I am going to side with the newcomer at this fight for this fight. I think at 35 years old, I don't think Jessica Rose Clark is getting any better. She's proven to be a liability on the ground. I think, any kind of scuffle that finds its way to the ground could end up with Lisboa on top. I think the striking matchup between these 2 ladies should be good. I think both of them can have their moments. Hard to really say who has the advantage there. But I'm going with the newcomer mainly because I don't trust Jessica Rose Clark. I don't trust her to make good decisions. I think the striking is probably 50-50. I think Clark is the stronger wrestler. But again, Clark can be a huge liability on the ground defensively. And I think that's ultimately what will cost her in this fight. So I think the newcomer is going to get it done. Tainara Lisboa is going to be my pick.
Yeah, first thing I'm going to say about this fight is don't bet this fight. This is not a fight you want to bet here. Don't mind my background if you hear all that. I'm in my garage, but this is a fight that I think you don't want to bet because Jess Rose Clark has a clear path here. She can get some takedowns. She's going to be fighting a Muay Thai fighter, and Jess Rose Clark has the grappling advantage. We saw how easy, once it went to the mat, how quick Norma got that submission in that fight, albeit it was 2016, but it was pretty quick and pretty easy. I thought in that fight, though, Lisboa was winning the fight. I really thought she was winning the fight, doing some work. But again, once it went to the mat, Norma Dumont was able to lash something up. It's a tough fight to really trust either fighter. On the Lisboa side, she's a high-level striker. She even fought Valentina Shevchenko in a Muay Thai fight. Held her own, looked good. She's going to be the better striker in this fight for sure. 100%, she will be the better striker. But I'm not sure the approach Rose Clark's going to take here. She's going to go with the heavy wrestling game plan. Again, this fight can go either way. But I'm going to lean towards the newcomer Lisboa because I believe she can do enough to make the takedowns hard. Norma Dumont had a hard time getting the takedowns because she was having a hard time on the feet. I think all that time passed, Lisboa should have enough to keep it on the feet here. On the feet, I think she's far better than Rose Clark. I think if this is a striking match, I think Lisboa is going to put a hurting on Rose Clark. But I do give Rose Clark a solid chance because if she can get some takedowns going, the fights can go the other way. But a fight that can go either way, in my opinion, I'm going to go with Lisboa to get the win here, keep on the feet, and outstrike her.
Second fight of our prelims, Bryan Battle versus Gabe Green. Welterweight fight here. Gabe Green lost to Ian Garry back in July. He's an active striker with good boxing, good kickboxing as well. He throws those combinations in there rather than just one shot at a time, which you like to see from him. Also a decent active calf kick, part of his game. He has a good consistent pace to his game, good forward pressure. Look for some switch stance out of him as well. Decent in the clinch. You know, he has shown that he can land the takedown, not too actively, but 50% takedown accuracy, which is a sign of that, knowing when he can land it. He has shown some grappling IQ, some submission attempts, not clueless by any means if that fight goes to the ground, but much more of a striker. Expect him to keep it on the feet unless fighters take him down, just 53% takedown defense. So let's see if that is relevant in this fight, which it might not be. Bryan Battle lost to Rinat Fakhretdinov back in December. Decent movement, pretty light on his feet. He fights from range. The striking is looking cleaner, fight over fight. A solid counterpuncher, pretty diverse striker as well. Look for him to kind of point fight at times, especially with those kicks. Really likes to use those kicks as a primary offense. His work rate, his pace has been pretty decent in the UFC so far. And I mean, we learned in his last fight, takedown defense, not great at all. Defensive ground game, not great either. I'll be honest, I know the odds are pretty close on this one, but I'm all over Gabe Green here. I just don't see UFC talent when I look at Bryan Battle. I think that Gabe Green is going to have the more complete striking. I think Gabe Green has the better offensive wrestling between these two fighters. And I'm going to trust Gabe Green's pace more in this fight. I'm going to trust Gabe Green's, even striking speed more in this fight. And even the toughness factor, I'm going to trust more on the side of Gabe Green. I think for Battle to win, he's going to have a big moment like he did in that Takashi Sato fight. Whereas I think Gabe Green can win by just being the better striker, being the better MMA fighter, landing more points, whether it's with the striking, whether it's with the occasional takedown. I think if this fight plays out as is, Gabe Green wins. I think if Bryan Battle has a big moment, then of course he can win. So I'm going to bet on the side of Gabe Green in this one, this fight occurring as is, no real surprises. And I think Gabe Green has the stylistic matchup advantage in this one.
Yeah, this is a pretty clear-cut fight. But Bryan Battle, this is a fight you can bet on. Bryan Battle, he's pretty average everywhere. He's pretty rudimentary everywhere. He has decent striking, decent movement. I like his movement. He mixes it in well with his kicks and his punches, but he's still pretty average. He's not that good. And fighting a guy like Gabe Green, who's going to be the far superior striker. This is going to be a striking match because getting Gabe Green down, you're going to need some skills to get him to the mat. And I don't think Bryan Battle has that ability to get consistent takedowns in this fight. You got to look at Gabe Green, though. Let's look at his fight versus Johan Lennes, his fight versus Philip Rowe. Where do you fit Bryan Battle between these guys? With Philip Rowe, he dealt with a finesse striker, won that fight. With Johan Lennes, he dealt with a brawler, won that fight. Obviously, Ian Garry, he lost that fight against a phenom, a potential title contender in the future. So there's no shame there. But where does Bryan battle fit between Johan Lainez and Philip Rowe? These guys, both of those guys, different styles, but both of those guys, I see them putting a beating on Bryan Battle. I'm not liking Bryan Battle in the spot because he's not going to be able to get the takedowns. And Gabe Green's going to be the much better striker. I think you can bet this fight. I think this is a fight that you got to look at. Gabe Green, you're getting good odds on him. I'm not sure what the odds are, but last time I checked, they weren't bad. And I'm pretty sure Gabe Green gets this one done here.
Third fight of our prelim. Let's talk Ji-Young Kim versus Mandy Böhm. Ji-Young Kim is on a 4-fight losing streak. She had a split decision loss in July against Jocelyn Edwards. She is a striker, introduced as having a boxing background, a jiu-jitsu background as well. Pretty composed on the feet, pretty light on the feet. Her in and out movement is pretty good. Good striking IQ as well. I think she's a lot more of a technician than she's a brawler, but definitely willing to engage. She has a chin, she has that toughness, but mostly hands in her striking. A bit one-dimensional from that perspective, a bit more of a boxer than anything else. Mandy Böhm is 0-2 in the UFC after she lost to Victoria Leonardo back in July. She has a good jab. She has decent kicks. She has good diversity in her striking. She is light on the feet, has solid movement. She's more of a point fighter as well. Not really the most active striker. Also has that K1 experience. Again, just speaking to that ability on the feet. Knowledgeable on the ground, at least defensively. I have seen, some ability from her to get up if she's taken down. She has shown me defensive grappling. I'm not going to expect her to get a takedown. I'm not going to expect either of these fighters to land a takedown. I will say be careful in either direction for this fight. Really low level fight. Probably, I'm not going to say the two worst women in the division, but I just don't believe in either of these fighters. But to that point, I feel like Mandy Böhm is at the lower level between these two women here. I think that Ji-Young Kim has the better striking, better hands, of course, better movement. I think Ji-Young Kim is also the more active striker, which would definitely work in her favor. And I don't think Mandy Böhm just has the ability to adjust. I don't think she's going to have an answer. I don't think that she will even land a takedown. And if she does, I don't really anticipate her doing much beyond that to put rounds in her favor. So my pick is going to be Ji-Young Kim. It is naturally with caution because it's a low-level fight, but I just don't see it at all for Mandy Böhm. So Ji-Young Kim almost by default.
Yeah, this is a low level, man. This is as low as it gets, man, in this division. Mandy Böhm, man, she's not good, man. She's not good at all, man. She's gonna need to get this fight to the mat though, and she's gonna want to have success in this fight. She's gonna want to use that grappling. She should have a grappling advantage on paper. She should be the more well-rounded fighter as well. But for some reason, whenever she fights in the UFC, she absolutely freezes, right? So you can't really bank on her doing what she did in the lower fights. But and again, when you look at her lower fights, she's fighting nobody, absolutely nobody, right? So I'm not sold on her. This girl Ji-Young Kim should have been cut from the UFC. She's on a 4-fight losing streak. But again, she's fighting really good fighters, right? In that division. Jocelyn Edwards, Priscilla Cachoeira, Molly McCann, Alexa Grasso, champion, right? So she's definitely in there with good fighters. And in this fight, I see this being a striking fight. And I like the boxing. I like the hands from Ji-Young Kim. It's more consistent than the striking approach from Mandy Böhm. Mandy Böhm really doesn't know what she wants to do. She's really reactive. I don't think she's going to take the lead. I think who takes the lead in this fight wins the fight. And I think that's going to be Ji-Young Kim. So I like Ji-Young Kim in this spot to get the win. Women's fight, betting-wise, I don't know. I'm not sure because in this fight, I actually think Ji-Young Kim, there's no way she loses, but still women's fight, so you got to beware.
Fight number 4, Natan Levy, Pete Rodriguez. Levy beat Genaro Valdez back in December. He's a southpaw, decent striker. He's actually introduced as a striker. Backs up a little bit too much for my liking. It is a little easy to put the pressure on him, but he is a diverse striker. He does have an active jab. He has good kicks. He can put solid combinations together. And what I like about him is that he goes at a consistent pace. He, covers up pretty decently as well. Pretty tough. He can take a hit. Solid clinch work. Good takedowns as well. Good control on the ground. A few wins via submission as well. Just 41% takedown defense. So got to be careful with that, although he is good at working his way back up. He's someone who, has slowed down in the past, but definitely has improved cardio to a point where he can, be effective in all 3 rounds and still, win rounds in all 3 rounds. So you do like to see that from him. Pete Rodriguez, on the other hand, beat Mike Jackson back in October. Decent looking stand up, some switch stance. All 5 of his wins are via KO, TKO. So we know he's going to be dangerous, especially early in the fight. He's explosive. He does have a good pace. He is going to be that fighter coming forward. The boxing is solid. The combinations are solid. The power is there. Listen, T. Rodriguez is very live here. Again, his boxing is dangerous. And Levy, like I said, is introduced as a striker. T. Rodriguez could definitely catch him. And I'll be honest, that would not surprise me in the slightest. So I'm not looking to bet in any direction on this fight whatsoever. You do have to think that Levy is the better overall striker, or potentially the more effective overall striker as this fight plays out with that complete kickboxing approach versus that boxing heavy style of Pete Rodriguez. I also want to think about Levy's wrestling in this one. In addition to Pete Rodriguez coming down to 155 pounds for this fight, every single one of his fights, whether pro or amateur, they ended in the first round. I'm talking Pete Rodriguez here. He's only had 1 fight go beyond that first round, and that was a knockout win 50 seconds into round 2, right? So we don't know what Pete Rodriguez looks like essentially after that first round. We don't know what a potential weight cut could do to his cardio. So again, he is live, but Levy, usually covers up well. I believe he is going to survive that first round threat. And then from there, the fight's pretty much his. So I see why Levy's the big favorite. I would caution this one because Pete Rodriguez is a legitimate early fight threat. But Levy, outside of that, should get it done pretty comfortably. Levy is my pick.
Yeah, this is a great one, man. I like this fight. Levy is the more well-rounded fighter in this spot. He has that grappling base, plus he has that striking style. But he does that Taekwondo style. But he needs, Taekwondo, they need space to throw those kicks. He's really kick heavy. On the feet, though, I think Rodriguez could give him some problems with the boxing advantage, with the hands, and I think Levy needs to get us the mat. Now, can Rodriguez go 3 rounds, right? That's the question, right? If he doesn't finish him, this is going to be a tough fight. I'm not going to lie, man. Natan Levy, man, I don't like I think Rodriguez has more of a dog in him. And I think that might be something to look at in this fight. I think this can go either way. I think it's 50-50. So I'm going to go with the underdog based on the fact that I think it's close. I think Levy can definitely get the grappling going, which I think he needs to do. But I don't think takedowns are going to be that easy, man. And for Levy to get his striking going, which he likes to play that striking game, he needs to have distance. And Rodriguez is not going to give him that space. So I'm going to go with the underdog here, Rodriguez here. Come prepared. And I think he can get this in the boxing range and really have an advantage in that spot. I'm not really on Levy. I don't think Levy has any boxing at all. Like it's pretty funny how he strikes. It's a kick heavy approach, moves around the ring, but his boxing is not there. And I think that's the spot where Pete shines. So I'm gonna go with the underdog here. Anything can happen, but I'm gonna roll with Pete Rodriguez.
Fight number 5, Cody Stamann versus Douglas Silva de Andrade. Cody Stamann had a unanimous decision win over Luan Lacerda back in January. If you remember that fight, Stamann was a big favorite in that fight, and a lot of people actually thought that Lacerda won it. But 2-fight win streak nonetheless for Cody Stamann. He is a solid all-around fighter on paper. Good patient, fluid movement around the ring, good IQ. a lot of fakes and feints, a lot of level changes included in his attack. He can take that approach because he also has a good ground game, has good wrestling, has the ability to chain wrestle, to body lock, to control in some ways. I do notice that he hasn't really landed too many takedowns lately, so might be falling in love with the striking a little bit too much. Douglas da Silva de Andrade, he had a unanimous decision loss to Said Nurmagomedov back in July. Pretty solid on the feet. He's a Muay Thai kickboxer, a lot of feints and fakes in his attack as well. He is very explosive, doesn't really do a great job of setting up his attack. His offense could definitely use a bit more activity, and we see that reflected in the significant strikes landed per minute. Otherwise, I mean, he is in your face, good kicks, good forward pressure, good strong clinch. He can use that to potentially land a takedown here and there. Not too active with it, though. Just over half a takedown per fight. Does have a good ground game, though, right? The grappling is there. That's not surprising. Brazilian fighter. Again, just doesn't really land the takedowns to intentionally bring it there. I think that Douglas Silva de Andrade is definitely live in this fight. I mean, veteran. Both of these guys are veterans. This is that kind of mid-level fight where anything can happen. But I have to go with Stamann based on Stamann's movement, based on the striking speed advantages that Cody Stamann should have in this fight. I mentioned that Silva de Andrade, she doesn't really set his offense up. And I think that's going to work really well for Cody Stamann because that's going to allow Stamann to fight smart, avoid the danger. And from there, I think that Stamann should be the more active fighter. I think he should, land more shots, avoid a lot of the Silva de Andrade's takedowns, right? And Cody can also land the takedown of his own, though I don't really think he needs it. I think that we're going to see a better version of Cody Stamann compared to his last fight in January. And I think we're going to actually see a similar style of win for him. Now, again, that was a somewhat controversial win, so that may not mean much, but I think it's going to be the same style from that perspective, where he's just sort of potentially outpointing the Silva de Andrade and avoiding that power on the other side. So I'm going with Cody Stamann. Should be a good one, though.
Yeah, I'll be quick, man. I'm on the Cody Stamann side, man. I think that he's just a more well-rounded fighter. And Douglas, as the fight goes on, third round, he's dangerous. He definitely still carries the power into that round. Throws body shots, but in this fight, Stamann should be able to dictate where the fight goes. Stamann has some takedowns. He should be able to take him down if he needs to. If he wants to keep it on the feet, Stamann should be able to go that route as well. On the feet, I think Stamann's boxing is better. I think he has better striking. They're not really throwing many kicks. So you got to look at the boxing. And Stamann has more clean, more traditional boxing. And I see him kind of being the minute winner in this fight. So unless Douglas lands a big shot, puts Cody Stamann out, I see Stamann winning a decision in this fight, man. And if he has issues in the stand-up, he can go to that wrestling, right? So I'm going to go with Cody Stamann to get the win. I think he's a better fighter, right? So I'm going to go Cody to get the win here.
Fight number 6, Karl Williams versus Chase Sherman. Heavyweight fight here. I think this fight was supposed to happen about a month ago or so. For Karl Williams, he had his debut against Lucas Brzeski. That was just 2 months ago. He's on a 5-fight win streak now. Pretty comfortable on the feet. I wouldn't say he's amazing. He does fight from range. He can be effective with his striking, quick jabs, straight punches. He will explode at some point. He'll look for that takedown at some point as well. I mean, very small sample size, but of course, very inflated takedown numbers. That's coming from 11 combined takedowns in his 2 sort of UFC fights. So of course, his debut, as well as his Dana White Contender Series fight. Good top control, has that sort of blanket lay and pray type of style, active enough with the ground and pound to make sure he's scoring points, make sure, the ref is not standing them up anytime soon. And with his debut, I was also satisfied with his toughness and especially satisfied with his cardio, of course, for this heavyweight division, especially. Chase Sherman, on the other hand, lost to Waldo Cortez Acosta back in November. decent overall stand-up. He likes that leg kick as part of his combinations, part of his exchanges. The combinations are there. He doesn't overswing, keeps it pretty controlled. Doesn't really have the best striking defense, however. Also really doesn't offer much in terms of a ground game. Let me not spend too much time here, though. Just wanted to quickly break the fighters down. Karl Williams should get it done pretty easily. A big favorite for a reason. Still a heavyweight beware. Still anything can happen from that perspective, but the wrestling alone from Karl Williams should be enough of an advantage to confidently side with Williams. Again, Sherman doesn't offer much in terms of a ground game. So I think it's only a matter of time before Karl Williams either controls the top for most of the fight or finishes the fight via ground and pound the first or the second time he gets him down. Karl Williams should be a pretty safe pick here, and he's going to be my pick.
Yeah, this is gonna be a clear cut, easy win. Karl Williams is gonna take down Chase, man, drag this into deep water. Just get this to the second, third round. It's gonna be continuous takedowns, ground and pound. Karl might even get a finish in this fight. I really like Karl, man. This is as close to the lock as it gets, man. Chase can't stop a takedown. He's not gonna be able to stop any of Karl's takedowns that he attempts. So Karl's gonna be able to dictate everything in this fight. Karl gets the win, so Karl's my pick.
Seventh and final fight of our prelims. Let's look at Matt Brown versus Court McGee. Two veterans going at it. Matt Brown had that split decision loss to Bryan Barberena. That was last year in March. Still has legitimate power at 42 years old. Look for him to control center. Look for him to put on pressure more times than not. Still very much a brawler. Going to want to keep it close. Going to want to engage with his opponents. Naturally, that's going to leave himself pretty open defensively. His hands stay down, goes for broke, kind of kill or be killed type of style a lot of times. And although he loves to stay on the feet, the wrestling is there from Matt Brown. 1.7 takedowns per fight, 46% accuracy. And we want to be mindful of him landing 5 takedowns in his last fight, albeit to somebody with no takedown defense in Bryan Barberena. But shows that he can still think about that and still use that approach in his game. Court McGee lost to Jeremiah Wells back in June. Relatively basic stand-up. He works the jab, fights from distance, doesn't really overexert himself. He can land takedowns, good timing on his shots. He's willing to work the clinch against the cage, willing to chain wrestle, willing to use multiple takedown attempts. In his last few wins, he has been able to get to the ground multiple times with a decent control time to go along with it. And with that is why I can see, Court McGee being the favorite for this fight. I think he's the better wrestler of these two, or at least it's a more active part of his game plan. I think that McGee has the better cardio tank as well at this point in their careers. I mean, both of them are older fighters. Both of them have had, 30 plus fights. But Matt Brown has, to me, a lot more mileage on his body, also 4 years older. We want to be mindful of that. I think this fight very dangerous because, it's ultimately going to be about whether Court McGee survives that first round, right? He could be a bit chinny. Matt Brown still has that power. Matt Brown is very dangerous. Matt Brown wants to brawl. But after that, I can see Court McGee, wearing on Matt Brown. Matt Brown doesn't have the best cardio using his wrestling. Matt Brown doesn't have the best takedown defense and banking rounds in his favor. So Court McGee is going to be my pick. I'm going to assume he survives the storm. But again, this is not a fight that I would bet on because he may not survive the storm, and it wouldn't surprise me if Matt Brown got a finish. But my pick will be Court McGee for this fight.
Yeah, you can't feel confident on either side, man. Both of these guys lose, man. That's what they do, man. If you look at their last 5 fights, last 10 fights, these guys both lose, right? So this is a battle of the losers, and we're gonna find out who is the better loser, right? So there's a lot of things on Court McGee's side that you gotta like. His durability, his cardio, his wrestling approach. He's gonna be the more well-rounded guy. On the feet, though, if this stays standing, I think Matt Brown will be dangerous early. As the fight goes on, I'm not sure, right? So it's a fight that literally can go either way. I do understand why Court's the favorite, but such a favorite, I'm not sure, right? So they're both old, man, and I'm gonna roll the dice with Matt Brown here, man. I think that something's telling me that this is a fight that he could win. This is the type of fight that he wins against these older guys, and I think he can keep it on the feet. He should be able to keep it on the feet and land some shots, man. Land some heavy shots, man. Matt Brown's a more dangerous striker. And again, this fight, I wouldn't be surprised if Court wins. He's the favorite, but I'm going to go with the underdog here, Matt Brown, to keep it on the feet and use his striking to get the win.
All right, let's move on to our main card. Again, we have 5 fights on our main card. Let's start with fight number 1. We have Tim Means versus Alex Morono. Tim Means is on a 2-fight losing streak. He had a split decision loss to Max Griffin back in October. Good striking, good consistent pressure, good counter puncher as well. He really likes those clinch situations against the cage. Look for him to use dirty boxing in those situations. Gonna look for the takedowns as well every now and then. Takedown numbers don't really suggest anything substantial, just 1.13 takedowns per fight, but respectable numbers over his last 2 fights. He's landed 5 takedowns. So again, it is there in his approach. Not the best striking defense. He'll definitely take a hit. He's definitely prone to leg kicks. I've seen him taken down fairly easily as well. Just 65% takedown defense. And just getting up there in age, right? 39 years old at this point, 14 losses. It's kind of a gamble in any fight that he's in as to whether he performs or not. He's going up against Alex Morono, who almost has double-digit losses in his own right. So very similar commentary to the last fight of the prelims. But for Alex Morono, he lost to Santiago Ponzinibbio back in December. That was a short notice fight for him. Solid boxing, good overhand right, solid jabs as well. The combinations aren't too bad, and the power is there for Alex Morono. Solid clinch game against the cage. He also does that sort of dirty boxing type of tactic in his approach. We have seen some takedown ability in his games, despite the numbers. Also has good grappling ability. Again, just not an active part of his game. He's very much a striker. I don't love his striking defense. Again, similar commentary to Tim Means. I think Morono can get wild at times. I think he can leave himself open at times. I think he lacks the technique at times, but he is a decent counterpuncher. Again, he has that power, and he has improved his cardio, which is worth mentioning because it can make him dangerous in later stages of the fights. Again, like I said, similar strengths, similar weaknesses between these 2 fighters. They're both strikers. They both have sneaky power. They both like that clinch game. They're both effective with that dirty boxing technique or tactic, I should say. Tim Means, to me, just not as dangerous on the feet as he used to be. So this is where the age is catching up to him. Yes, he's had 19 KOs in his 32 wins, but he hasn't won via KO TKO since 2018. His last 3 wins are via decision. So again, it's not the threat that he used to be. Tough fight to predict. Still 50-50 from that perspective because similar strengths. But I have to go with Alex Morono on this one. I feel like he has more in the tank. I feel like he's a lot tougher at this point in his career. 32 years old versus 39 years old. And unlike his short notice performance in his last fight, he's going to have a full camp for this one. So I think we're going to see a much better Alex Morono than we saw in his last fight. Tim Means is on the decline. Alex Morono maybe not quite yet. So this is a very winnable fight for Alex Morono. I think he gets it done.
Yeah, this fight, man. Tim Means, man, this guy, well-rounded guy. Let's be honest. Good boxing, great boxing. Good combinations, mixes it up really well. But let's be honest, this guy's old, man. This guy's old, man. So he moves really slow in the ring. Footwork is not there at all. And against a guy like Morono, who moves in and out on his feet, he's bouncing around. It's not going to be good, man. I see Morono, especially since Morono has leveled up, man. He's been looking good his last fights. He would be on a 5-fight winning streak, but Ponzinibbio has good recovery. Had him hurt a couple times in that fight. He was on his way to win that fight. and then got caught in the third round. 2.5 minutes left in that round. So you gotta look at the improvements coming on the Morono side versus a fighter that's kind of fading out. Morono has good striking, good movement, good power, and he's well versed in the jiu-jitsu, the grappling as well. I wouldn't be surprised if he's the one that gets some takedowns, right? So I think Morono's better everywhere, man. I think Morono's a better fighter everywhere. So Morono is my pick to get this done.
Second fight of our main card. Let's talk Carlos Ulberg versus Ihor Potieria. Light heavyweight fight here. Carlos Ulberg on a 3-fight winning streak now. He beat Nick Negueramanu back in November. High-level kickboxer, multiple-time kickboxing champion. He's light on the feet. He's good, quick, accurate, and diverse with his striking. Good movement, good combinations, a lot of fakes to set up those jabs, things like that. Good power in the hands as well. Very sharp calf kicks, especially as well. Cardio has been a bit of a concern with him, but he is looking a bit more patient, looking a bit more methodical, looking like he's pacing himself a lot better in his fights. So let's see what that looks like here. He has been a bit chinny in the past as well. So we're going to have to see what happens in this fight with respect to that as well. Because Ihor Potieria has pretty solid power. He's a striker. He beat Shogun back in January. Good hands, solid combinations, good forward pressure. The striking, the movement looks relaxed. He picks his shots well. He's patient. Bit of a one-dimensional fighter, I'll say. His clinch game is lacking. His takedown defense is lacking. Not going to bring the fight to the mat by any means at all. And his cardio is lacking too. He's somebody who slows down, really after that first round. So, should be a fun kickboxing fight, no matter what, at least for a round. I think both fighters will be playing into each other's strengths, but I'm on Carlos Ulberg for this fight. Unsurprisingly, he is a big favorite because flat out, I think he's the better kickboxer. I think that I think he carries more power. I think he has more speed. I think ultimately his striking is a lot more dangerous. But in some ways, anything can happen, right? This fight in some ways could be about who catches who first. Like I said, Ulberg has shown a bit of a questionable chin. So probably not something you want to be quick to throw on your parlays, although he should get it done. Ultimately, I put it this way. I think Ulberg gets it done in this situation at least 8 times out of 10. Make that be your vote of confidence for this fight. But this is not something that I'll parlay. I'll avoid that, but I'll still pick Carlos Ulberg to get the job done.
Yeah, Ihor is gonna have to get this to the mat, man. He's gonna have to utilize his wrestling, his grappling. He's gonna have to take this to the mat because on the feet, Carlos is too clean, man. He's too clean of a striker. I think he wins this fight, man, pretty easily, man. I see why the odds are this kind of spread out. But again, the unknown with Ulberg, how good is he, right? But I think he passes this test here. I think Ihor is too sloppy for a guy like Ulberg. I think Ulberg's just going to kind of stay at range and pick him apart. So I really like Ulberg in this spot here to get the win.
Fight number 3, Daniel Rodriguez versus Garry or Ian Machado Garry. Daniel Rodriguez lost to Neil Magny back in November. Southpaw, good hands, good stand-up, good boxing. Technique is solid. The ring control is solid. We know he has a solid jab. Straight punches pretty effective as well. Good at throwing combinations, really. Historically solid takedown defense, but just 63% takedown defense on paper now. He was taken down 5 times in his last fight. I don't think that'll be relevant in this one. Just solid overall fighter with D-Rod. Consistent. You know what you're going to get from him. And that's going to be a tough fight, no matter who he's up against. Ian Garry, on the other hand, still undefeated. He beat Keenan Song back in March. Quick hands, good movement, good long jab, good kicks, good striking speed. The accuracy is there. The technique is there as well. The combinations are sharp. The striking IQ is there, especially once he really starts to get going. Good timing. He's showing that he can handle pressure fighters with that outside movement that he has. The fight's off the back foot a bit too much, but like I said, it's good footwork, a bit of a stick and move type of style. It's intentional. and he's been able to handle those pressure fighters. Like I said, the takedown defense is okay, but he has been taken down in 3 of his 4 fights now. Just 1 takedown landed in that same time period, so he's very much a striker. And although his takedown defense is solid, he can be taken down. Again, I don't think that'll matter in this matchup. I think we're looking at a really good matchup, good striking matchup, and probably a closer fight than the odds would indicate. We saw Ian Garry get rocked by Keenan Song. So that's something that D-Rod can exploit. And with D-Rod's style, you imagine that both fighters will have their chances on the feet. That said, I'm still going to side with the favorite. I'm still going to go with Ian Machado Garry on this one. I think he should be just too dynamic. I think he should be a bit quicker in this fight. I think he's going to have that opportunity to outpoint Daniel Rodriguez. I think he's going to have that ability to fight a really patient fight, use that reach advantage that he has, which is not too long, at only half an inch, but 2 inches taller, and just stylistically, he fights as the longer fighter, that stick and move type of style. I'm going to be careful with this. I'm going to advise being careful with this on parlays. I think, Rodriguez is a live dog on this one, but Ian Garry should get the job done, and he's going to be my pick.
Yeah, this is one of those fights, man, that I think can literally go either way because Rodriguez is a dog. He's ready to have that type of fight that Ian Garry wants to have a pretty fight. He wants to have a pretty looking fight, be able to stand on the outside. But Daniel Rodriguez is going to close that gap. He's a vet as well, right? So the fight gets close. If they're close, Rodriguez is at a serious advantage. Obviously, if they stay distance, I can see Ian outboxing him. He's really good, really fast, tall guy. I can see him just outstriking him using that jab and kind of dictating where the fight goes. But for me, fight is close. I was going both ways. I was switching back and forth. I landed on Ian Garry, but again, I'm not. This is one of those fights that I really feel that the underdog could show out, especially on the main card, right? So got to be careful in this spot. But I'm going to go with Ian Garry and be the better striker, the sharper striker. But again, if Daniel makes this a dirty fight, that's his advantage, right? That's something that that's an area he shines in. So this fight can go either way, but I'm going to go Ian Garry here to move up the ranks here.
Co-main event, Anthony Smith versus Johnny Walker. High stakes light heavyweight matchup here. Anthony Smith lost to Magomed Ankalaev back in July. Patient fighter, veteran, of course, good overall movement, fights from distance, a lot of level changes, a lot of fakes, a lot of feints included in his attack. Decent right hand down the middle, decent jab as well. But his specialty is his grappling. It's his BJJ. Not really a wrestler though, right? So less than half of a takedown per fight, which is problematic given his strengths. Just 48% takedown defense. He is someone that's going to give up a lot of control time. Not the best striking defense either. That front leg stays exposed to the leg kick. But he's a veteran, and he's someone who can, find ways to win fights against fighters that, leave themselves open. Going up against Johnny Walker, somebody who has, of course, seen the upper ranks of this division as of late. He beat Paul Craig back in January. He's a big threat early in the fight, especially. Very explosive, a lot of power. 16 of his 20 wins are via KO TKO. 11 of those 16 KO TKOs are in round 1. And only 2 of his 7 losses are via decision. So Johnny Walker, very much a finish or be finished type of fighter. Like I said, very explosive, a lot more kicks than punches. I actually think his boxing is not great at all. He has cleaned up his striking a little bit, so he is using a bit more fakes and feints in his attack. His technique is somewhat better. He is a bit more methodical. He is a bit more patient. His cardio has been a question mark, especially throughout his career. His chin has been a question mark as well. And Anthony Smith can capitalize on that, right? That's where, Anthony Smith is showing his value. But I'll be honest, the odds surprised me on this one. I'm Johnny Walker pretty much all the way. I think this is his fight to lose. I think that Anthony Smith just doesn't really offer much at this point. I think that he is going to have the better hands, but I can't say he's going to be the better striker throughout this fight. Again, he leaves that leg exposed, and Johnny Walker has dangerous kicks, especially the calf kicks. Johnny Walker doesn't have the best takedown defense, but you'd have to go back to 2016 to find the last time that Anthony Smith landed multiple takedowns in a fight. And, where Smith is live, like I've mentioned, is Johnny Walker's chin being questionable, Smith having that cardio advantage as well. But it's a 3-round fight, right? Walker, I think, is much more dangerous, has that power, much more of a dangerous power threat. Half of Smith's losses are via KO TKO, so I think that Johnny Walker can definitely knock him out. I think that Walker has, more fight, a lot more fight at this stage in his career. And, I think this could be one of those fights where Walker just steamrolls him in round one. That wouldn't surprise me at all. Again, Anthony Smith, a veteran, but I think this is Johnny Walker's fight to lose. Johnny Walker is going to be my pick for this one.
Yeah, Anthony Smith, he's not really showing much, right? He's not really improving. He's pretty much at his point where he's not getting any better. He's older now. He's in the broadcast booth. So he's a vet. This guy can definitely win this fight. On the feet, I like Johnny Walker on the feet. I think the reach advantage is enough to kind of give him the advantage. On the mat, I think Johnny Walker has surprising grappling. And I think in this fight, he will have enough grappling to kind of negate any offensive grappling that Smith might try in this fight. Johnny Walker has leveled up, man, in the last couple of fights. If you watch this fight, he's actually improved a lot of holes in his game. And he's being a much smarter fighter as well in these fights, right? So I think Anthony Smith can definitely win. Broadcast host, those guys are really, really well-rounded. Those guys are really smart fighters, really good IQ. But I think Johnny Walker still has that athleticism, that advantage that he could spark Anthony Smith here, man. He can give him a hard time. It's only 3 rounds, as Harris mentioned. And I think that benefits Johnny Walker, man. I like Johnny in this spot. I think his strike is going to show out. Good fight to showcase his striking. I see him getting a finish.
Let's take it to our main event of the evening. In that case, Jairzinho Rozenstruik versus Jailton Almeida. Heavyweight fight. Rozenstruik beat Chris Daukaus back in December. Patient stand-up, point fighter, has a ton of power. We know he hurts guys with jabs, he hurts guys with short hooks, things like that. Doesn't really need to wind up with a wide punch to hurt you. Likes to keep it on the feet. Overall, good takedown defense, 75%, very relevant for this fight. Not really the most active striker. Again, he's, more of that point fighter, patient, really good technical striker. He can unload when he needs to. The combinations, they're quick, they're accurate, they're dangerous. And again, he's a really good counterpuncher. Someone who's just a high-level striker and in this heavyweight division, unsurprisingly, very dangerous for anyone. Jailton Almeida beat Shamil Abdurakhimov back in January, 4-0 in the UFC now. Exciting prospect, 31 years old. He's pretty much in his athletic prime. Introduced as a wrestler boxer. So look for that style out of him. Good front kick, good calf kicks, good pressure on the feet, explosive takedown attempts, physically strong, has great wrestling, great top control, effective ground and pound as well. And the grappling is there to go along with it. He takes his time, he sets it up. 11 of his 18 wins are via submission. And that just, again, speaks to his patience in the setup. Land the takedown, be patient, wait for you to make a mistake, find the submission. That's kind of his style, right? The other 7 wins that he has, because I mentioned 11 of 18 via submission, the other 7 are via KO TKO. So if he doesn't find that submission, he's going to find that knockout. Just a finisher in general. Almeida gets his first test, though, in the UFC, right? And this is a legitimate test in Jairzinho Rozenstruik. I think when it comes to the striking, I think it is fair to say that Jairzinho is the better striker, more technique, probably more striking speed. And with Jairzinho's power, legitimate dog, especially at these odds, right? Rozenstruik also has good takedown defense, but the thing is that, you know, good takedown artists will land takedowns against Jairzinho. Curtis Blades landed 3 takedowns against Jairzinho. Alistair Overeem landed 2 takedowns against Jairzinho. Even Cyril Gahn landed 2 takedowns against Jairzinho Rozenstruik. So that tells me that Jailton Almeida should be able to land the takedowns too. And I feel like that's where the fight significantly shifts into Jailton Almeida's favor. I think that the Curtis Blades versus Jairzinho fight particularly comes to mind, except Almeida is going to be more dangerous of a striker than what Curtis Blades was. You know, this is where I think that Rozenstruik's patience as a striker is actually going to work against him, because I can see that giving enough time for Jailton Almeida to use that pressure style on the feet, to push him against the cage, to land that takedown, to bank rounds in his favor, ultimately frustrating Rozenstruik, possibly finishing Rozenstruik as well. So I like Jailton Almeida. Minus 500 is steep, but I get it for the name that he is. I probably don't bet this, but I do feel like Jailton Almeida wins this fight again, 8 times out of 10. Jailton Almeida is going to be my pick. I think he gets it done. A finish would not surprise me either. Jailton looks good.
Yeah, when you look at high level strikers versus a high level grappler, 9 times out of 10, man, you got to go with the grappler, right? So these both are specialists. Jairzinho is a striking specialist. Um, Almeida's a grappling specialist. So you got to go with the grappler here no matter what. They're both specialists in one area, so they're not really that good in the other area. I see Almeida getting the takedown, getting to the mat, doing what he does, man. He's gonna make it easy here. Um, levels, right? So I see him getting the takedown, winning the fight pretty easily here. So Jailton Almeida's my pick.
All right, let's take it to Vegas. Let's talk some underdog picks. Let's talk some parlay picks as well. But first, of course, I will read off the underdogs. They may be slightly different in your books because I know some of these fights started off as underdogs but swung. Some of them are close fights, but nonetheless, let me read those off. So what we're looking at is Tainara Lisboa is an underdog versus Jessica Rose Clark. Bryan Battle is an underdog. Mandy Böhm is the underdog. Pete Rodriguez, Ihor Potieria, Douglas Silva de Andrade, Chase Sherman, Matt Brown, Tim Means, Daniel Rodriguez, Anthony Smith, and Johnny Walker. That's a pick 'em, so we're going to count either of those as underdog picks. And Jairzinho Rozenstruik is also an underdog.
Okay. So let me see here. Repeat the beginning. You said, who's the underdog in the Lisboa Clark fight?
Lisboa is the underdog, depending on which book you're using. I know Lisboa started as the underdog. She may have swung to a favorite or a pick 'em at this point, but in the book that we're currently looking at, Lisboa is the underdog.
Okay, I'm 3 in a row underdogs, man. I'm gonna go with Lisboa. Hopefully to keep it 4 in a row here.
All right, Tainara Lisboa. I was looking at her as well, but I will provide another underdog pick. I'm going to go with Johnny Walker. Again, that fight is a pick 'em, so we will count either fighter as the underdog in that one. So Johnny Walker is going to be my pick there. Now, in terms of parlay picks, who are you taking a look at?
All right, parlay wise, I'm looking at Carlos Ulberg, Carl Williams, and Gabe Green.
3 fights, 2.73. That means that $100 will get you a total return of $273. For our bigger bettors, $250 will return a total of $683. In terms of my parlay picks, they're actually quite similar. I also have Gabe Green. I also have Carl Williams. I considered Carlos Ulberg, but instead of Carlos Ulberg, I landed upon, where is he? I landed upon Cody Stamann. So those three fights would be a 3.64. $100 will return a total of 364. For our bigger bettors, $250 will return a total of 911. So let's sign off on that note. This has been UFC Fight Night. Jairzinho Rozenstruik versus Jailton Almeida, your full card prediction video, presented by yours truly here at Boxing MMA Picks. Again, if you haven't done so already, please make sure you hit the thumbs up on this video. Make sure you spread the word. Anyone that is looking for straightforward UFC predictions, we are happy to provide that for them. Make sure you subscribe to the channel here at Boxing MMA Picks as well. That would be greatly appreciated on our end. And most importantly, we want to hear from you in the comments. How do you feel about our picks? What parlays are you looking at? What analysis can you bring to the table as well? We want to hear it all in the comments, and more than happy to have that conversation with you. But let's officially sign off. UFC Fight Night, Jairzinho Rozenstruik versus Jailton Almeida. Full card prediction video. He goes by Zan. I go by Harris. We are Boxing MMA Picks, and in our usual fashion, let's get that money.
Let's get it.
Hey. All right, put this together.
All right, man. Let me know what's up.
Yeah. Later.